Good evening, Mr. Shrinivas. Welcome to the Sustainable World Conclave 2024. So, I have a few questions for you. So, my first question is that what are the efforts your company is making to make their sustainability promises into the real world action?
So when I talk about the sustainability practices, when we talk about, especially when we talk about the textile industry, so textile is one of the major impacts in terms of water. Water is a major impact where we consumption of water is very high. The wastewater which is actually generated because of the textile. So that is also a bigger impact which is actually happening. Energy is one, waste is another, which is actually because many of the waste fabric garment which is done goes as to the landfills. So Arvind, what is doing is basically we are talking about a zero blue carbon, right? So basically we don't use any zero blue water. So we don't use any fresh water into the processing. So that's one big initiative what we are doing in terms of the water. In terms of the carbon footprint, basically we are about 60% of renewable electricity, 100% in terms of the energy, renewable energy. In terms of the waste, we are also thinking about basically recycling. So we're doing a lot of our own recycler facilities where we have put in. And we're doing a lot of recycling in our fabrics as well. So this is in general, but in terms of the chemicals, also we are doing a larger play in terms of water. Since we're using less amount of water, we are also, that means also a less amount of chemicals being used. The chemicals what we use is basically doesn't have any kind of toxic substances in them. So they are like MRSL, which is basically manufactured restricted substances list. They don't have any of those chemicals. So it is good for the environment, good for the products you wear, and good for the emissions as well.
Yes. So, lots of company currently making their net zero targets. So, but their target tracking process often seen as like not that much of efficient. So, what's your take on that? How can these companies will make their net zero tracking efforts more efficient so that they can meet these target on time?
So one is putting certain tools in place, right? Scope 1, Scope 2 is something which most of the industries are comfortable with because that's what you have full control on. Scope 3 is where you don't have the control which is actually there. So it is very important to build your supply chain. You track your supply chain into your entire network. So you have, first of all, identifying that supply chain is very, very important, right? When you talk about Scope 3, it is all about the upstream and the downstream. Have a complete map of that and track it in your system, and then kind of use those the energy consumptions on those particular supply chain into your system. So that's how you'll be able to do that.
So, as you talk about supply chains, so my next question is about uh, supply chains. So, what do you see as the biggest challenges in building a truly sustainable supply chain, and what are the efforts will a company take to overcome this?
So when you talk about textiles, one of the biggest challenges is the farmers. The farm holdings in India is very small, and that means for basically a single kind of fabric yardage which has to happen, there are multiple farms catering to that. So kind of putting all these data into a kind of tracing of this is going to be always a bigger challenge for us. So one is that, and second is as we move towards more of organic and regenerative cotton. India earlier was into organic and regenerative, but then we have moved on to the conventional cotton, which is actually there. Bringing those practices back into the supply chain is going to be the key area where we have to focus on. But when we actually do that, because you need to see textiles go through multiple phases, right from the farm to the ginner to the yarn spinning. Multiple players, stakeholders are part of that. So to ensure, and many of these are unorganized as a sector. So it is very important to actually ensure that basically all these supply chain is actually mapped in. You are able to kind of handhold them and trying to put that effort to actually ensure that basically they are more sustainable so that you are getting benefited in the larger.
Okay. So, thank you so much. It's a lovely talking to you. Wait, wait.